Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, Ankur, are we live now?
Yeah, just wait. Let me talk to just audience once a minute. Okay, okay. So, what's going on in the chat? So, let's have a quick check. Who all are with me? Mm, okay, okay, okay. Let us see the comments. Who all has joined? Okay, okay, okay. So, guys, we are live now, and Shubham is going to be with us in a moment. But by that time, let us have a quick check on how does this setup sound. And I think the light is not too harsh, and you can comment, and then I can see it. Yeah. Uh, so I guess it's fine. Yeah. Okay. So okay. Yeah. Okay. I guess everyone is here, and okay. 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 Thanks. And okay. So here we are. Welcome everyone. Welcome to this Sunday evening, and you are at the channel Ankcurio. And right now we are being joined with so many people, so much love from India, and I think my sound is also loud and clear. So at the same time, now we'll introduce to what we are doing and what this setup is and what this deep dive is going to be. So first of all, before introducing Shubham, I'll give you a brief on what it is going to be. This is channel Ankcurio, and I am Ankur, currently doing research from IIT Bombay. And this is a small initiative for bringing the conversation from the area of storytelling, and in which we will invite various speakers or the persons who have something derived from their life in such a way that it can enrich all of us together. So, in this session, our first guest will be Shubham Aggarwal, and he is an urban planner turned commercial pilot. At the same time, I will introduce him to you right now, and he will be talking to us. So, let us see if he has joined or not. And mm, yeah, okay, yeah, Shubham.
Hello, Ankur.
Yeah.
Yeah, am I visible and audible to you?
Yes, yes, sure. You are visible.
Yeah,
Uh,
perfect. Hello, everyone. Shubham this side from PlanningTank. Basically, as Ankur will be introducing us, the basically what all we will be covering in this session. So we will proceed touching upon different phases. And Ankur, I guess you can
yeah,
tell the
now
audience
I'll
about what
introduce.
all we will be covering. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure, sure. So, guys, I hope we both are visible and audible properly because this is the first time. So, we want to ensure that everything is working fine and so that uh, we can go ahead. So, the first of all, here Shubham is with us and I will ask him to introduce himself. But before that, Ankcurio is a platform where we'll be dealing into four aspects. We have academia, tech, productivity, and storytelling. All of these things will be combined together at this platform, and we are also bringing knowledge from blogging website, but at the same time now we are shifting it towards YouTube. Here at this channel we are going to bring more creativity and curious videos which can inculcate all of us, and it can bring more value in our life. I hope during this setup we will also try to go with English as well as Hindi, both language, I think, so that we will be more accessible. So as far as Shubham is considered, we will try to have both languages. So Shubham, I'll ask you to now introduce yourself as who you are and who you are becoming in the process.
Hi, Ankur. Thank you for having me today over here on the Ankurio. So we look forward to like make this session as useful as possible for all of our audience. Right now, I'm working as a commercial pilot professionally. Before this, I did my bachelor's of planning from School of Planning and Architecture. And even before that, when I was doing my schooling at that time, I was involved with the blogging stuff. So that's how the online building an online community, building websites come into play. So you can consider me being firstly involved with making websites and doing internet stuff. Second, with being my graduation from School of Planning and Architecture, where I became an urban planner. And thereafter, I shifted to aviation, where I'm currently engaged right now as a professional life is considered. So, website and aviation are continuing both together. So, I'm handling the website, which is called PlanningTank, and side by side, whenever I get time for the website, I try to give more time to the website, and for remaining time and the main job which is concerned, I'm with the Indigo Airlines right now.
Okay. Shubham, I think with your voice, a little bit disturbance was there, I guess. And so far, I think my voice is coming clear. Okay. So, hmm, okay. I hope it's audible. Yeah. Okay. So, Shubham, I'll start with my first question to you. And the first thing that we want to know is what are the obstacles in building an online presence? Like you have your own platform for students, which is serving as knowledge bank for everyone, even the academicians, even the students. And there they can come and take information about urban planning and related aspects. So, what was the motivation factor of starting this? Like, what was the point? ऐसा क्या point था जहाँ से you thought that I have to start this because such platform was earlier not there and even the traffic that you are experiencing at this website is quite huge. So I'm really surprised and I want to know that first. How did you start your journey? Like, what was the first point?
Okay, all right, Ankur. So, considering we are beginning with the website part in the current stream, so the website, since I was involved with the website during my school time only, so I was working on different aspects like the designing part, then how to go about the marketing. So, till the time I started with Planning Tank, there was no one particular fixed website. So during my graduation days, like when we initially, as I told you, I did my bachelor's in planning from School of Planning and Architecture. So the planning itself as a course was not very much known. So you will find it very common, like people go with the planning course because they are unable to get into architecture, or they have their own particular doubts about planning, how to go about it, what actually they will be understanding and learning in the plan. So in this, after completing my first year, there were like various doubts which were in our mind. We used to visit to our seniors, we used to have discussion with the faculty members, like what is the future once we are done with our degree, after spending like 4 years of our life, what we are going to be, how the market is going to be, so how to approach the companies, what are the placement scenarios, like all the questions which any person have when they're pursuing their graduation. For us, it was a bit more different and unknown, since planning, the information which was available about planning, that was far too less as compared to any other course. For example, if you go for the engineering aspect for the doctor, these are like some of the well recognized courses, so you can get a lot of information. You have your seniors, relatives, friends, colleagues, so you can go to them, they can guide you. But for us, it was entirely different because we had like very, the access to seniors was only through networking. So a person was better at networking, he or she was able to get much clear idea about the profession, and accordingly they proceeded. So this was the starting point when I thought like we need to have some unified platform. And after studying for 1 year, we realized that urban planning in itself is not a very well-known course, but rather it is a combination of different 4 year full-time BTech courses. For example, we have different semesters which are individual courses in its own. Let's say we have a transportation semester, and at the same time we have a traffic and transport engineering, which is a degree, 4 year degree, which is provided standalone degree by the IITs and various other institutions. So to create awareness about what planning is about, then the course content, how much we need to study, because in 6 months, in one semester, we cannot cover up what the person is learning in not six, in the 4 years of the complete BTech course, which they are studying as a single course. On the other hand, we had to cover like from 5 to 6 courses within a duration of 6 months. So where to stop ourselves from studying how much knowledge to gain, to what depth we need to go into. So that was something we were facing issue with. So that's how the idea of planning things started.
Okay, so that's interesting. And now I just want to know if you are having so much resource base and at the same time you are having a lot of traffic which is going to come over there and in search of knowledge. But at the same time, have you thought about how it can be a business asset also, because you started with the idea of blog or something that you were missing in the process, but somehow there is a distinction between providing a service and then later thinking about it in sort of business asset. So I think you have spent almost 7 years in developing this platform. So how do you think now what it is going to be? And uh, don't you think it is going to be a business asset more than going to be into the education sector itself?
I guess you pointed out in the right direction, Ankur. So initially, when I started, we did not have any motive to make it like to generate any sort of revenue or take it into a business model kind of consideration. Because back in 2012-13, there were like hardly 7 to 8 colleges which were offering this profession. So even if we were able to reach each and every student at that time, we will be hardly having like access to 3 or 4 thousand visitors in a month. So that was something considered from a business point of view not viable. And even now, as per me, the considering what all activities we are doing, so even if we are able to reach each and every student in India, then also it is not a very viable revenue business model which we can make through the website. So the idea and the very basic of the website was not about revenue generation or turning it into a business, but it was more of creating a resource which is for the planners and by the planners. So the faculty members which we have, they have a mix of architects, planners, civil engineers. So we try to understand how much information we need to absorb from them without turning our profession into someone else. You would not want an urban planner to be a transportation expert because that defeats the very purpose of the complete course. And as
Mhm.
far as traffic is concerned, in the initial days, we used to have like only 10 or 20 visitors. It was a completely new website. And since most of the resource was educational, students were reluctant to use it in the project. The authenticity of the content was questionable and what they were expecting. Then there were only very few articles which are available, and people used to frequent Wikipedia more than our website. But slowly over the time, as we added more and more content, we used to do a lot of research while into content writing. So that's how we started. So it started from one, basically zero, and then right now we are having like more than 1 lakh visitors a month. So you can consider it to be like more than a million visitors in a year. So right now we think and believe like we are making a difference. Let it be a very small one, but at least we are doing something for the community and giving back by the collective efforts. We are collecting resources from the students as well, so they are getting a chance to show their knowledge, share their work with the others, and benefit the whole community as whole. Consider, sorry, considering
Yeah.
the business aspect, we do have some plans, but I guess we are slowly working on them, and it might take up to a decade to make it a viable business model. But as I mentioned earlier, that is not the only purpose. So we are taking it slowly. We are more focused on building quality and providing different resources rather than making revenue at this time. So that's about the business model
Okay.
in brief.
Okay. So it means that as a person, you were the sole person who started for Planning Tank itself, or you were involved in two, three people who, because it requires some of the website knowledge, you have to deal with SEO, you have to, like those who do not know in the audience, SEO stands for search engine optimization, and it is a very useful tool for making your blog optimized. Because if you are trying to start your blog or you want to start something in online platform, then you have to take care of what Google is going to rank you for, Google आपको कैसे rank करेगा, and how you are going to use that for your search engine, because it affects your visibility into the global platform. So it is very important to take care of SEO while entering into this platform. If someone is using WordPress, then it is fine, but if someone wants to be found on internet, then SEO tool has to be taken care of. And even when I started Uncurio, I was also not sure how I'm going to deal with this particular idea. And then there are multiple people who are working on or exploring the information of you can say SEO, and उनसे मैं भी काफी कुछ सीखा. Even if you as a user want to start your blog and want to make that it has to be found even on Google, and it reaches to people, then you have to take care of that. And you can try searching for the works of Neil Patel, and he is doing quite well into the SEO platform, and he is making everyone aware of that. So while I am asking Shubham of this question, because at that particular time when he was starting, it was not aware, and that was quite lack of knowledge also, and it was not accessible for everyone. So that's why I was curious in asking this question to him. But at the same time, Shubham, I think that you are leading with example, and at the same time you are leading with some core idea that you in your mind, and even for the benefit of others, that's a good thing. But I guess it should take care of the business asset, because when you deal with your website, how much space of your content is occupied by what you are delivering and what you are giving into the audience, that is also very important, I guess.
Yeah, Ankur, as you rightly touched upon the SEO aspect and like how it started in the user base, which we had like about 7 or 8 years back, and the experience, the traffic which we are experiencing right now. So in the starting, like most of the companies or the setups, so I was like working alone on the website. But since I was into website even before that, so I knew about the much of the technical aspect. And then after like in the last 8 years, continue to like refine my research and how the changes are being taken care of in the industry. So Google remains like one of the largest search engine. So I keep on updating myself by studying about the SEO aspect. And since you are running Ancurio now, you are aware about how different type of SEO and all the technical aspects which are related to the website, so that people can find it on the Google. So initially I was working alone. So I used to have my friends. I used to tell them like, boss, I've made this website, so please visit. And if there are any suggestion, feedback, so then I would have taken into consideration their suggestion. Then similarly from my juniors, seniors. So it was kind of a word of mouth publicity in the beginning. So later on, slowly we started getting traffic from the search engine. It was again like 10 to 15 visitors a day. But I was not expecting any large number of volume of visitors because the course was relatively unknown at that time also. So
Okay.
people used to go to Wikipedia only, as I said earlier. So right now we are a team of about like 10 plus people who are working as volunteers. They consist of both the professionals and the students. So we are giving our time whenever we get out of a schedule to the website. So different members are contributing in different aspects. It is like content writing, then memes, then we have quiz, then we started with a discussion forum. So right now we are trying to understand what all different kind of services or platforms are required by the users. So job portal was like one of the feature we people were requesting, because the students are facing issues with the job, and there is a lack of awareness within the market itself. So later on, like in few years, we have started working on this right now to create awareness about the profession, so that companies know that there is some profession called as urban planning or town planning. In India, we have different names given to the profession itself. So like where they can get the hold of those people. So kind of a unified platform for all the planners where they can visit what all employers are there in the field. So even if they don't come up with a vacancy itself, they can at least approach them and take a feedback, or maybe they get a opportunity to get engaged with them. So that's how like we are trying to address this issue.
Okay. So, how do you figure out what to focus on? Because you are working with Planning Tank, or you can say you are channelizing Planning Tank information with student or academia community. But at the same time, I can find you working in your aviation part. So, how does that transition happen? Like, was it your childhood dream to go into aviation, or you just had a try of just like let's do engineering and then we'll think about life, or let's do planning or then we'll think about that. So how does this aviation part came in? Because it takes a lot of time and energy, and even financial aspect is there. So what was the first strike that you took for getting into aviation?
Uh, so thanks for that question also, Ankur. So it was basically when I was in the seventh semester, almost like completing the course for the B planning. So at that time, I basically and all my friends were looking at the future prospects which we had. So we were exploring the options. So there were again very few options. Most of us considered like doing masters as to be the most secure option as far as the professional life is considered. The vacancies, unfortunately, are more for the masters, and that is like kind of unfortunate because bachelors are excluded in it. So that is something, one of the struggle which the profession is facing, and we are trying to address that issue as well. As far as aviation is concerned, I had like considered three options for myself. So one was like going for the masters as everyone else was doing, and I myself also wanted to go for the masters in the environmental planning. Then a different option I had was the MBA, since a lot of planners were doing MBA also. But then, as you might be aware, and all of our audience as well, like getting into a well-reputed college requires like almost a year or two of hard work. So I was not very much willing to drop for 1 or 2 years to prepare for the CAT exam and the other exams which are associated with the MBA. Then the third option which I had was aviation. I was like very reluctant, and at that time I kept it on the like lowest priority uh, among the three. But as some of you might know, my brother is also a pilot, so that's how the transition started. So basically, I discussed this with my brother, with my family, and so at that time we started exploring like what aviation holds in case I decide to shift to the aviation. But since there was no relation between planning and aviation, it was a complete transition or something very new, which for which I will again be required to start with a very scratch. So I discussed about it. Then I came to know like unlike other courses where you are required to go to college or for like full time courses, aviation was a bit different in this aspect. So we used to have some exams which we need to clear. In addition to that, we have the flying experience in which we need to fly the actual aircraft. Those are the training aircraft, so those two can be done like differently. So either one person can go to a particular institute, he can do both flying aspect and the studies aspect together at the same place, or in other case, which I did was like to complete the study aspect first, remaining at the home only after my graduation, and later
Okay.
on only if I found those subjects to be interesting, that I can decide to move to aviation. So that's how this started. So again, since I was very reluctant and aviation was not known, I had applied for the masters again in the SPA Delhi itself, and I was selected for the environmental planning. But again, the I was in the waiting list initially. So as the time moved and I was studying about the aviation aspect, so my interest developed in the aviation, and that's how after doing my all the ground studies, I decided to go for the flying as well and complete my training sorry, to get the license. So that's how it
Okay.
started. It was not a very well thought of idea initially, and neither it was a childhood dream. It is for many of us, most of us, for my colleagues whom I communicate on the daily basis, but that was not a case in my that was not a case with me at that time. But right now, I can say that I do enjoy aviation. It was not something which was decided in the very beginning, but right now, over the time, the kind of interest has evolved and do enjoy like doing the aviation stuff as well.
Okay. So, how does your focus shifts? Because now you are giving your time to being present online. At the same time, you have aviation, and even you have to remain so much time far away from your family. So, how does that fit in? Like, how much your family has to compensate for that? Like, is it easy to even think about that? Because maybe lockdown period would have been a survival kit, but I don't think rest of the time you must be getting any time for that, even for the online delivery when you have to deliver.
So I would consider this to be more in going into like what we as a pilot consider, like what our lifestyle is, how much time we are getting for the different stuff. Let it be like social life, family life, or the personal life. So considering this, like once you join the airline, so I will start with the job aspect, little bit behind the like getting the license and moving to job. So once you are in the airline, there are like different kind of trainings which you need to undergo. So those are usually done by the airline. So the schedule is dictated by the airline itself. So it is kind of in the other jobs, since you go for the training in other kind of induction process for the first few months probation period. So it's kind of similar in our case also, but the duration is a bit different because in a office work normally you consider 9 to 5 as your office timing, but it is not same for us. So we have a like 24-hour schedule. The difference is like the our schedule is given in advance in most of the cases, and that is again handled by the airline. And our working hours are limited, and that is something dictated by DGCA, which is the Director General of Civil Aviation in India. So instead of a regular 8 hours day job, we are kind of having the limitations on how much time we are required to work, and that imposition is that this restriction is placed by DGC on the airlines. So, for example, as a pilot, when we are flying actively, so there is a limitation of flying for 8 hours in a day or going for 2 to 3 landings in a day. So, both the aspect number of landings and the total flying aspect is considered. So, this falls into the category of flying hours. And then we have a duty period. So, since it's flying an aircraft is different than the car. We just can't simply go inside the aircraft and turn the engines on, take it. So there are like some preparations which are required before going to the aircraft. So that period, studying through all the factors which are active on that particular day, how the weather is, what all facilities are working, and if there is any technical issue with the aircraft, with the airport or anything like that. So that is taken care of before we enter into the aircraft. We do have the documents to read. So we receive a bunch of documents. We go through them. So that time is considered into a duty time. So we have a split. One, we have a flying time, then the duty time. Then both are restricted. So as far as flying part is concerned, we can fly a maximum of 8 hours in a day. Then there is weekly limit imposed, which is like 35 hours. So company cannot make a pilot fly for like continuous all the 7 days. Then there are monthly limit, which is about 125 hours in a month, and then a yearly limit of 1000 hours. So if you're flying for 100 hours a month, then at max you can fly only for 10 months. So this is basically staggered throughout the year. So yeah, please.
Yeah, I've got very interesting comment in the comment box. Faizan is saying that as a planner, he need to see the world from above. So I think if we involve that into our conversation, do you think that seeing the world from above has changed something in your perception, or even in terms of how do you see planning, or how do you see the you see different sections while we are trying to make maps on ground. At the same time, you can go up ahead of the forest and you can see, you go through the ocean and everything else. So how does that perspective change your like flying experience, affect your ground life, or even the planning concern?
Okay, thank you for that question, Faizan. We really appreciate it. And I would like to answer you once I conclude the previous question, which Uncle you asked me, like how it is affecting the other aspects of the life. So the other aspect of life in aviation are pretty much in control once you have some experience. So initially, it is kind of hectic, and we are required to compromise on the social life and the personal life as well. And mm, whenever we get time or we are taking the day off, that is the time we usually prefer to spend with the family or for ourselves. Now, coming to the question which Faizan asked, it is quite interesting because whatever we used to draw on the map as a planner, that is something like we get to see from the cockpit, good view out of the cockpit window, like how the things are, especially the night view. That is like the complete city is lit up with the lights. So
Yeah.
till the time we are like at least about 7 or 8,000 feet, we can see like pretty much everything in the city. So there are like lights moving on the road, which are usually the traffic on the highways. Then all the highways give a very beautiful picture because all the street lights are lit for a very long distance. So that is something I really enjoy. And as far as changing the perception is considered, there are like, if you consider the pollution aspect, then we are able to see a different layer of pollution. So what we might not be able to experience or see from the ground, that is a complete layer which is visible for the pilot. So once we are transitioning or increasing the altitude, so that is very much visible. This was again something which I experienced while I was flying the aircraft in the training phase also. So I got the opportunity to flying in Bombay as well. So there were
Okay.
issues with the visibility. So in the
Hmm.
initial part, we need to have some minimas which are for the visibility. Like you need to see at least 5 kilometers of the space in front of you very clearly. Then only you will be allowed to fly that aircraft because those are not that advanced level of technology which is being used. So at that time, that pollution aspect was something which used to take my mind back to the planning itself. Like I could have done something to do or to deal with this particular issue, but now I was in a completely different phase of my life where I was experiencing it, and we were kind of at times scared. Like, what if we encounter an aircraft in very proximity? So whether we will be able to take the decision in the right time, or if that the particular aircraft is being coordinated with the ATC. So that is as far as like the environmental considerations are considered. Then other aspect which I found to be really interesting is the coordination aspect. The coordination between various departments and all the people who are involved in the complete process is kind of similar in case of a planning also and aviation also. So you can consider this type to be a comparison between the aviation and planning. So as far as aviation is considered, like we have different departments. For example, starting with the airline, there are different internal departments. Then they are coordinating with the airports, like the airport authority. Then we have DGCA. Then we have the other airport over where we will be landing. Then we have few alternates. So coordination is like almost at the same level in aviation, which is in the planning itself. So the
Okay.
coordination aspect is much better in aviation. That's what I would say. Things are more streamlined and everyone is like responsible. Delays are not accepted, and everything is taken up in a much more timely manner as compared to plan. But yeah,
Okay.
my mind do go back to planning, like comparing it all the time. What things are different, how the things can be made better in aviation if we take example from planning, and how things can be improved for planning if we take examples from the aviation. So I hope
Okay.
Faizan that answers your question.
Yeah, I guess I'll come from the I'll shift from the professional side. I want to know how do you find then like-minded people, or how do you grow your circle now? Because you have to play between both lines now. You whether it is on the ground or whether it is in the aviation or whether it is in your family life. Because you stay in Delhi, right? So you have to be in Chennai for some time because the last time then you were into your duty. So how do you see your circle growing because of your short time and short stay? Means how personally it affects your life.
Uh, Ankur, I would guess this is something I really enjoy, and it is more on a positive note. Like since we get to shift or like work from different cities, we are meeting new people on the daily basis. Like even the captains and the colleagues with which we are flying, they change on like almost daily basis. In each and every flight, we almost have a new set of crew. Let it be like the cabin crew or the flying counterpart, the captain itself. So this is something which helps you understand people at a more in a broader sense. We have people like coming
Hmm.
from different cultural aspects, then even from the different
Hmm.
countries. We have a good set of
Hmm.
pilots who are from different countries. So you get an opportunity to kind of understand them. And
Hmm.
at the
Hmm.
same time, there are quite challenges also. But then there's that is something where the aviation of beauty comes into play. We have our fixed rules and the stuff to do. So the differences, let it be cultural, let it be personal. So those differences are not affecting the work on a daily basis. So we have our fixed set of stuff to do. The other person will be doing that. So how much you open up to what person, that is like completely up to you. That do not come into your professional life. And once we are outside the aircraft, then we are tried, like as you said, when I was in Chennai. So I used to meet people from Chennai, trying to understand like how the differences within India itself. So there were like quite a lot of differences. So you get a completely new picture about your country as well. So once I moved back to Delhi because of the lockdown situation, then I'm again with my family itself. So I'm enjoying like the friends which I had during the graduation time. They are available in Delhi, so I enjoy like spending time with them. So once I move to some other city, we might be developing a like new relation over there. Can be with the person, with the colleagues or like the neighbors, or maybe some friends which I get to know through the online community. So planning tank again comes into play with that space also. Since the students are there are in constant touch with the students, so I do get to interact with the students which are in other colleges also. So I look forward to like meeting them whenever time permits. So that's it's like all the three things are kind of complementary. So they have been like going good so far for me in all the three phases.
Hmm. So what about your first flight experience? As in, when was the first time and which aircraft did you took for the flight?
Okay, so we used to have like a four-seater aircraft, which is a trainee aircraft on which like all the pilots begin. So we are required to complete like 200 hours of flying on that particular aircraft. It is actually a difference like 185 hours on a four-seater aircraft, and then the remaining 15 hours on kind of six or eight-seater aircraft. So most of the time is usually spent on the one aircraft which we fly for like at least 185 hours. So the aircraft which I flew was called like Cessna 172. We used to say it C172. C is for Cessna, that's the manufacturer, so that company builds that aircraft, and 172 is the model number. So when I was there for the first flight, it was like completely very excited phase. Like I was after like studying for 1 year, finally I was getting to sit in the aircraft and see like what I will be doing actually. So there I was like standing with my instructor. I did my flying from Bombay Flying Club. So we used to operate initially from a place called Dole. So Bombay was the main headquarters, but the initial training, or most of the training was from a place called Dole. So I was standing with my instructor, then he was looking at me and asking me like, what do you expect out of this flight? So at that time I was said, like, sir, I'm only like very much excited and thrilled about it. And apart from that, I have no idea what I'm going to experience or what I will be doing. So we both went. So the first flight is usually kept for a shorter duration for like 30 to 40 minutes. It is just to make you comfortable with the aircraft because that is like kind of first time you are getting to experience the forces in three dimensions at the same time. While driving a car or driving any vehicle on the road, we are usually restricted to two dimensions, but in the aircraft, then we have three dimensions to control. So the everything is taken care of by the instructor itself. But once we are in the air at a like safe height for 3 to 4,000 feet, they usually give you control so that you can have a feel of like how the aircraft turns, how the different forces, how the aerodynamics come into play, how the power is delivered to the aircraft, and what are the effect of different forces which are acting simultaneously on the aircraft. So I was expecting it to be a very adventurous kind of thing in the first place, but when I was there in the air, it was like completely different experience. I was excited, but my mind was like very much involved into what was happening. There were a number of things which you need to understand. Then a lot of details which is being thrown to you. So you tend to miss out on one or the other aspect very frequently. So you are mostly engaged and your mind is consumed in all the information which you are getting. Because like the information part is considered, like in the car we are usually seeing only the speed, the fuel, like 3 or 4 different meters, let it be RPM. But in the aircraft, then we have 7 to 8 different meters, the all the needles going on. So you need to know what parameter to focus on at what time. So that was like completely confusing for me in the very beginning, but that is why the training part is required. So that was kind of very nice. And once we landed back, it was like the first flight is something like which a pilot cannot forget where you are sitting the aircraft for the first time, experience everything yourself. So that was like really amazing experience.
Mhm.
So
Okay,
in the
that's
commercial
very
aspect, if
interesting
you
because as such, when you, yeah,
continue,
yeah, not going into the professional aspects, or yeah, I think not going into the professional aspects. I'm more keen into how it works out and how the experience is being felt because maybe for the audience it would be too much to have even the specifications part, and somehow I think when we deal with flight and when you deal with even something when you are driving on the ground itself, you have the difference of axis, I guess, because somehow you have two dimensions while on the ground, and but you are not sure anytime that how will it change in the wind. I guess. Do you think the same, or whether I'm thinking right for this?
Ankur, you are in the right direction. And also, I would like to interrupt you for this. And I would like to wish all our planning audience a very happy town planning day. Sorry, I forgot in the beginning we planned to wish you all, but right now, like me, Ankur, and all the people who are watching the video today, we celebrate as a town planning day. So that is something very important for the planners out there. And now, Ankur, coming back to your question, this is something which you rightly pointed out. It was very kind of confusing state in the very beginning. Considering from the planning perspective, we used to create maps which were always having a north in the up direction. So irrespective of what angle we are looking into, the information about the direction was confusing. So once you are in the air, you kind of lose the sense of direction, and magnetic compass is the main instrument on which we are relying for. So without going into the technical aspect, the sense of direction was something which was problematic. Then winds were like another challenging thing. So in the initial part of the training, so if the winds are like say more than 5 to 10 knots, then the students which are in the beginning of the training, those are not allowed to fly because it is difficult. It can be difficult to handle the aircraft. Then, as comparing to like driving a car, you always have a time to apply brakes to troubleshoot if you encounter any problem. Take a phone call or do whatever you want. You always know like you can park your car on the sideways and you can do whatever you want, and then you can continue safely when you think when the situation permits. But it's not same in the case of a flight. We cannot like put the engine off in the mid-air. So everything is always in motion. So we need to act also and we need to think also at the same time. So direction something like initially making trying to make sense of the direction. So trying to understand how the instruments work, trying to find out our position in the air, because on the ground hardly we are able to find like any good particular spots which we can identify as a landmark, and trying to navigate our way we need to like go back to the same runway. So in the starting we used to fly near the runway itself. We are kind of making a race course pattern, and then we try to fly like within the 15 to 20 nautical miles, say approximately 30 to 35 kilometers from the airport, so that we have at least faint visual reference, so that in case anything goes wrong we can come back to the airport and land. And then there are like longer flights which are like kind of connecting from two cities. So we used to fly like from Bombay, we used to go to Surat. That is something we used to do visually. We used to carry maps. Those were like kind of the same maps which we used to have in the planning itself. So in case of specific case of like Bombay to Surat, we used to have a coastline as our reference. So we used to keep the maps. We used to have particular direction in form of degrees in the magnetic compass which we used to look. So we kept on tracking like on what track, what all degree direction we are flying, and at the same time we are seeing the distance which we are from the Surat and kind of Bombay. So that is something like how we used to go about the navigation aspect, and all the factors as weather, winds, and all other things do come into play. So in case we are encountering a bad
Mhm.
weather, we are required to check all those reports before the flight itself. We cannot simply go in the air and say like, boss, today it's raining, so it was a bad decision. Such mistakes are like usually not allowed and not accepted. So these are all the questions you thought
Okay.
were, they are in the right direction.
Okay. Shubham, I'm very interested to know if there is someone in the audience or if someone watches who has some interest in going into aviation, or let's say who want to have a career in aviation, when that person should start, or what should be the motivation idea that you want to give to that person? Means how would his life change in thinking about aviation, going about it, preparing for it, not just into the academic way, but what should be the perception? What could be the state of mind that you should say to a student or a person or even a family members, like what should be the disclaimer for a person who want to go into aviation? What do you think about that on a personal
Uh,
note?
it will be like consider it to be like pursuing a profession like anything else. It is basically a decision which people take after completing their 12th. So the starting requirement is basically 10 plus 2 with mathematics. So that is how you qualify to be a pilot in the very beginning. Then there are like different aspects involved. You need to clear through your medical. There are medical exams to test the physical fitness. So and then the flying aspect and the ground giving the exams which I talked about. So those are the three kind of three mm, phases which you need to pass through. So in this, as far as a person who is considering aviation to take up it as a career, so I would consider you to take into account the financial aspect, because the industry is from the distance it is kind of too lucrative and it is very amazing as well. So but the glory which is associated with the profession and the whole industry, that is something which is coming at its own cost. So you need to figure out like if you are planning to take loans, since the financial aspect, the kind of investment which you are required to do, that ranges, there are like two trainings involved. So both are essential, but the first one is usually in the form of getting your license, which is a CPL, commercial pilot license. That can cost you around like 30 lakh plus, depending on where you plan to do your training part and which aircraft you are flying. Then there is additional training which you are required to do once you enter in the airline. So you can do it before entering into airline or even after getting into airline. But in both the cases, then it is you 90% who is required to again do that expenditure on that getting yourself trained. So as far the financial aspect is considered, in India there are like investment of about 60 plus 60 lakh plus once you when you plan to do like both the trainings, and considering you have got your CPA license, like leaving about the educational aspect, how you handle the exams. This is for obtaining the license, the cost, financial aspect which is considered. So if someone is planning to take a loan, they need to be aware like it's not something that you immediately get a job after doing your CPL. So it might take a few months and it also might take a few years. Then there are odd cases, right, like what we are facing right now due to the pandemic. than if any airline closes. So that kind of creates a surplus of pilots in the market. So that's the risk you're taking. So in
Mhm.
case you think about it in the beginning, that is like very useful so that you can deal with the mental stress which you're going to face later on. And from the passion point
Mhm.
of view, if someone is interested in flying, there are options to go for the joyride. So these are kind of 1 hour or 40 minutes flights which you can go and take from the flying clubs. So the institutes which are offering the flying course are called referred to as flying clubs. So they are charging you around like 10 to 20,000 rupees a hour. So if you just want to experience how it is to be sitting in the small aircraft or what you are going to experience, so that is something you can do. This is something not
Mhm.
aware. Students are not aware, but instead of taking the major decision without thinking much or without experiencing it, this is kind of a safer option which you get to experience. Then instead of starting with the flying aspect, you can go about doing your studies, which are called the ground studies, the subjects. So you can reach out to right now, like you can Google it about Google, like what all exams are there, and a lot of information is available on the YouTube as well. And hopefully, I guess you will be entering on Ancurio as well. So you can go through that information and how to go
Mhm.
about it if those subjects spark your interest in the aviation, because studying aspect is something which will go on further throughout the career. Considering planning commercial pilot or any professional course, you should be ready to experience a lot of studying aspects. So you need to remain updated with the market. So either you need to do the studies on your own, or the company for which you are working, they will be giving you with some course or the other stuff.
Mhm.
So you need to study. Initially it is kind of a lot hectic because there is a lot of thing which you need to consume and you are studying that for the first time. That's why the flying clubs are also referred to the flying school. Same is with the architecture and planning. Since all these courses require you to be starting from scratch, these are kind of cold schools. So that is something you need to keep in mind. There will be a lot of studying initially, but later on it is more kind of fun.
But Shubham, I'll interrupt you here. If you are saying these details with reference to what you have experienced in your life, I do not see that whether you have experienced some sort of failures in this lines or not. Because the way you are speaking, it seems that it has gone very smooth, and there has been no, there has been no delayed, or there has been no, everything was fine with your life, or everything was एकदम true with your family, and everything was accepted. Even your brother, as you're saying, was pilot. So don't you think that is a very streamlined move? But against that thought also, but where did you find your failures, or where did you find your wisdom in getting into this kind of arrangement, even for the life part? So what do you think about that? Because failures are something which are going to teach what others are going to learn. So that part, maybe you can focus where, what was the turning point where you shifted from planning and you changed even your profession? Whether it was it due to the lack of job, lack of interest, or then it moved to a certain all scenario where you were having some time to think about it. So what was the spark? What was the failure point or the turning point that we can see?
I'm very glad, Ankur, that you brought up this point. I do realize, like the conversation we had, like so far, it was kind of like everything was already set for me, but that was not the case. So I'm very glad you pointed this out. So actually, there have been a lot of struggles and the difficulties which I've faced till now. So I would say those start like very from the school itself. So once you are done with your 10th or the 12th, then you are faced with a challenge to choose like career which you are going to progress with. So at that time, planning was not something which I decided initially. I was trying to focus on the architecture aspect, but we ended up like going for the planning. And in between, we had some few issues with the counseling itself. Like when I applied for the SPA Delhi, at that time we used to have something called as AIEEE. That was the engineering exam as it is known to most. But we had a similar exam with the AIEEE, within AIEEE, which was for the architecture and planning. So there were some complications with it and the results were delayed. So and initially I was not getting the Delhi college. So at that time I faced a few failures because since I wanted to be in Delhi but I was not getting this college itself. So at that time I applied to various other universities as well, but I was not accepted over there because they some of them considered the marks for the architecture from the NATA exam. So I didn't score a good marks in the NATA exam. Then, since the counseling was getting delayed and the chances of getting SK Delhi were diminishing day by day, I even switched my complete career towards commerce at that time. So at that time, I took classes for like almost 2 months for becoming a CA. So that was an advice of my dad and the option which I considered to be available for me at that time. So after giving and studying for the architecture exams, I shifted to CA. I did attend the classes for like 2 months, and later on the issue which were with the counseling in the AAEEE, it had to do with the state name. Odisha was being changed to Odisha at that time, and the seats which are for the state quota and from the central board, some confusion was there with that. So they were like case pending in the court, so that caused the delay. So once I got into the SPA Delhi, there was like no kind of running back. I knew I was not getting the architecture, but getting to stay in Delhi was like good enough reason for me to pursue the course. And the very little information which I had with the planning, what all I will get to study. So that kind of pushed me towards planning and made me confident planning will get me good returns. But after 3 years, when I was in my seventh semester, that again kind of changed. I was involved with like we had an organization called NOSPLAN, National Organization of Students of Planning. So I
Hmm.
was there as a council member in that organization. So I used to interact with a lot of people from the different states. So that kind of gave me more clarity on like what I'm expecting out of SPA Delhi and what they are expecting out of their own colleges. So although SPA Delhi is considered to be the best college, the things didn't seem to be that positive at that time. So although I was in kind of best college, but the job options, as you pointed out, they were like not much of an option. So it was kind of a struggle which you are required to do on your own after getting the degree. So that was kind of a turning point. I was looking at what all job options I have. So in case job was available, then the work profile which was there, that was not something which was very lucrative for me. So that made me think about whether to go for the job or pursue like some other course or go for the masters. That was kind of a turning point when I started exploring my options in the seventh semester. And as I mentioned earlier, going into the aviation was because of my brother from whom I received like constant direction. So getting into a completely different profession without any information was something which I had already witnessed in the last 3 years. Planning was one such phase of my life where I was like completely clueless. We had very limited information and it was kind of very restricted also. So although it was almost similar with the aviation as well, but then I could rely that whatever information I'm getting that was like much more accurate and there was like no other source which could be parallel to what my brother was able to tell me. So I kind of had direction, so I was only required to put in the efforts. And from the parents' part, they have been like quite supportive, and they were like they had left this decision to me. Like they will go do with the financial aspect. They will arrange the all the amount which was required. So the only aspect I was left was with preparing for the exams. So putting in my best effort. That was something which my journey is about.
Okay.
There have been
So,
failures once I yeah, just one more information I would like to share. So once I was in the aviation, then that transition was something very kind of difficult for me. There was a point I was like when we go for a first solo flight, that is kind of a very big moment in life of a pilot because we are flying alone for the first time. So I was kind of getting delayed for it. Usually students get it like within in 15 to 20 hours, but I had like spent 20 plus hours, but still I was not ready to take the aircraft alone. So that was kind of a constant pressure on my mind why I was not able to perform, why I was like getting behind the other students. And additional burden was like since I had already completed a 4 year full time degree and choosing aviation was again one my decision. So I was very reluctant to see if I can quit aviation or take a break or something. So that is kind of additional burden which I was going through. So there was like no turning back at that time for me. So all I had was aviation in front of me, and that's what I wanted to excel in. So that's all about it.
okay, that's actually a story because that's what I was thinking that it is missing from our conversation when we are bringing so much positive lines, but at the same time, one has to understand that there is a catch somewhere where you have to take care of these shiftings because even if we talk about a discipline, also it has to be learned from those principles that we have to take in your mind. So yeah, moving on to another part, there is a question like as per the Hindu. I think you can see like Indian Aviation Airlines is in loss. So where they might improve as per planning and overcome with the loss. So do you think that this is something which you can talk about?
I guess I can give you a very faint picture about it because I guess I will not be the correct person to comment on this. The market forces which are into play are very dynamic. So, being a pilot, that too in the initial stages, it will be inappropriate for me to make any comment on it, and also it will be kind of misleading for the audience. But yes, there are own struggles involved within the airlines, and it is kind of something which we were experiencing during the 2008-10 recession. So right now there have been a lot of job cuts. There have been pilots who have been removed by the airline. It's the same case, let it be domestic airlines or the international airlines. So again, there will be kind of saturation in the market. Market is already seeing the saturation right now. So the vacancies are going to be bit less if you're considering to do a CPL. But yes, we do have a positive note also, like the Indian aviation is still doing very well as compared to the counterparts. So although there are like pay cuts, there are job cuts, but this is kind of which I think the ups and downs are associated with each and every profession. Because if you consider a BTech to be a much safer option, then there have been job cuts in the BTech also. So let it be IT sector, manufacturing sector. These are kind of situation like which affects each and every sector. So the best you can do is to be true to yourself, give your best, try your best, and then there are other forces which you cannot actually control. So those are things
Mhm.
which are taken care of the market itself. But if you are putting in your efforts, you will definitely get a good job.
I think, Shubham, that's interesting. And what do you think if you are asked to give an advice to any student or even a person who want to come into the blogging scenario? I preferentially talk about the blogging part only. Like if someone wants to go ahead of WordPress and then he wants to or she wants to get into the scenario where they can monetize it also, but at the same time they can use their hobby to incentivize it on their time. So, what could be the balancing thought here? Because I think we are approaching 56 minutes already. So, I think that advice would be very much useful for the audience who think of or who actually appreciates writing, because that is what is something missing from not from the most of the community, but at the same time, writing is a very crucial skill that we many time overlook. So, I think if we incentivize blogging or if we put blogging into that section where everyone is attracted to it, how can that person be getting into it? What could be the idea? Even I have met a lot of people who are very good writers, but I think they are not having that audience where they have to provide their experience and all those things. And somehow that was the key factor where I also brought Uncurio here. So that's why we made a team and we are working with other people. We are involving editors also now, even for the YouTube part, and we are also associated with our new writers. So we'll be launching approximately, we'll try to bring one or two posts a week, something like that, because we know that there is a section where those are not getting those footage, or you can say that exposure is missing. So what could be the starting advice from you? Where should one blogger begin, or where should that writer start?
Okay, so Ankur, consider it to be like the internet as we see and experience today is far more different like what it was a decade before, even 2 decades before. So you need to be clear about as a blogger or as a person who is looking to turn website into a business. So how you plan to approach and what you plan to achieve with it. So if a writer or someone who is interested in writing, who enjoys writing, reading, so that person is starting with a website that is more into the blogging aspect. So it is difficult initially and even in the pretty long run to make revenue out of it till the time you have a decent footfall on the website. So you can either continue to write because you enjoy writing, you develop your own audience, and that was the concept of whole blogging, which was initially over the internet. You had like free services, paid services. They were offering you different functionalities, but all those were limited because the person enjoyed writing. But right now, the websites which we see visit, those are more into business. So they have a proper business plan in place. So if someone is making a website from a business point of view, they can offer like services for the content writers who in the long term plan to make their own website. They can either associate themselves with a bigger platform. And taking the example of Ankurio, that since you have started with a very small team and right now you are in the very progressive stage, initial stages. So the first priority should be to getting out a quality content to the website. Have your loyal reader base, share something new with them. So instead of going into the expenditure part, going for the heavy advertisement or something, you should be trying to get your audience through word of mouth publicity using social media platform, your own immediate network, and all the friends which you are having on the social media. So those are kind of very starting point. That is something how I started with the planning tank itself, because getting to rank a story on the Google is kind of impossible, but the chances of getting it viral on social media, and because of that reason getting it onto Google or being caught by some of the media hosts, that is like much more viable option. So you never know, like a content writer might have written something very good, but it is never found on Google. But whereas he or she might have written a piece of content which is very heart touching, very informative, so that can be shared
Yes,
by like hundred and thousands of people.
exactly.
So you need to see like the
Yeah.
visitors which you are expecting, can they be brought from search engine, like what target audience is and how to go about that audience, how to bring that audience in your platform. That is like the initial struggle which is associated with a website, and it might take you like anywhere from 2 to 5 years to get a very decent audience before you like go for some hiring or doing some expensive advertisement for your websites. You can work
Okay.
as a content
All
writer
right.
for a bigger website also. That is something which content writers usually do.
Okay.
So that's how they are able to support their website, and at the same time they are doing what they are enjoying, so they are producing content for some other website. I
Yeah.
hope that answers your
That's
question.
that's a great point that you have. Yeah, that's a great point you have mentioned. I think when you're talking about what you're doing is what you're enjoying. The idea goes with do what you love, and that is what is very important. But at the same time, I think during this conversation, I think we are reaching 1 hour already. The three aspects that we wanted to talk about, that is the first one, the growth of planning tank, second being into aviation, and the third part, like when we are talking about growing our online audience. I think we have substantially addressed them, and I think it might be useful for those who want to take a little step beyond. And in the meantime, I think where even we are going from this has to be mentioned at this particular point of time, because it will be very useful as to what our audience can expect where we are going. So when we interacted with Shubham, and when I contacted Shubham for this particular talk, I was also a little bit skeptical about how this particular idea will work out, or how this storytelling format of talking about things is going to work or not. But then we realized that the importance of stories and storytelling is becoming less and less available in our common platform, even our academia, or even if we talk about the real lives. So many stories are missing, so many ideas are missing. So it only comes with the wisdom of the people who have gone across such things, but at the same time it becomes very resourceful if we bring those ideas together and we try to bring it into a single platform. I know there are multiple platforms which are already doing this, but then it starts with yourself, it starts with the people who are around you. So only those people or the circle can influence the ideas. Like some people I know, they have very good reading habits. I have some people who are good in writing, some people who can work out well with the movie making and those kind of things. So those are the things which are very interactive, and at the same time very useful for the other people when we are sharing it in a common platform. So that's what you can expect from Uncurio, and that's what we are going to do in our further sessions also. So for this session, being here and seeing you audience is really a privilege, and thank you so much for joining us. And thank you so much, Shubham, for being with us and sharing your time, because I know you are in aviation. So again, you might not be getting time to be at home, and you will again be flying. So I guess all the best wishes for you. Keep flying high, and be down to earth as you are. And I'm very happy to have a conversation with you. I hope with this line of thought, we will have more conversations, and we will have more deep dives, that we are calling it, because we are going deep into the ideas and we are trying to explore more, which can be useful for everyone. So with that thought, thank you so much, Shubham. And yeah, that's it. Okay. So
So Ankur, on this, I would like to interrupt you and add like a concluding something like which remark kind of thing which you can use for the Ankurio itself and for all the audience who plan to like go into any of the, or if they want to explore like kind of aviation planning or the online stuff. So you can have like a different session which is completely focused on one particular aspect, because the things which we will discuss today are kind of three very disconnected fields. Those are very different, and all the three requires like a complete full-time effort. So these are kind of like I am putting my fields in the three boards instead of two. So all of these three fields are full-time job in itself. So there are much more details and the intricacies involved. So maybe depending on the feedback from the audience and what you have seen till now on your complete platform Ankurio. So considering that you can have such session where we take up only one particular topic so that audience do not feel lost and also they're able to get more answer to their particular queries. So that might be useful for you as well, the audience also, and your complete Ankurio team.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's actually a good input that you are mentioning. Even we are also working on building a niche. At the same time, we are having some classifications that we are working on. But yeah, that's a good input. Yeah, we are working on it. Yeah, thank you so much, Shubham. So I think
thank
with
you,
that
Ankur.
thought, we'll close it here. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining, whoever has joined. And yeah, and this video will be available after even this live broadcast. So you can access it and you can share it amongst your friends. And you can subscribe to our channel also because we are going to conduct these kind of sessions further. And then you can get a notification on this. So thank you so much for joining on this Sunday evening. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Shubham.
Thank you, Ankur. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. You can reach